Hello, I'm Andy Mack, and welcome to Movie Shorts, the podcast where I don't just ask whether a film is good or bad, but why it works, who it's really for, and what it's trying to say beneath the surface. Marty Supreme is one of those films that doesn't just shout for your attention. It doesn't arrive with big moments or obvious signposting, but it quietly invites you to lean in. On paper, this could have been a familiar character study, yet what makes it compelling is how little it explains itself and how much it trusts the audience to sit back with ambiguity. This is a film about image and control, about a man actively turning himself into a story and what happens when the line between truth and performance starts to blur. It's confident, restrained, and far more interested in psychology than spectacle. So the question isn't whether Marty Supreme entertains you in the moment, it's whether it lingers once it's over. So let's get straight to it. Set in 1952 in New York City, Marty Supreme introduces Marty Mauser, a shoe salesman working in his uncle's shop whilst also competing professionally as a table tennis player in a country that barely takes the sport seriously. Early on, Marty gets his childhood friend Rachel pregnant, but crucially, we as the audience learn this before he does. The film tells us through its opening title sequence, which shows millions of sperm racing towards an egg that then fades and merges into a ping-pong ball. A visual joke, but also a blunt statement of priorities. Responsibility and consequences are literally transformed into competition. It's the film's way of telling us what matters most to Marty before he's even had a chance to confront it himself. From there, Marty dreams of winning the British Open and forcing America to take notice, hustling money, pitching schemes, and pushing past moral and personal boundaries in pursuit of that goal. And we will stop there. Directed by Josh Safdie, this film runs at just under 2.5 hours, a length that signals its intentions early. This isn't a brisk, punchy sports movie, it's a film that's prepared to sit with behaviour, repetition, and discomfort. The film is anchored by Timothée Chalamet as Marty Mauser, with supporting performances of Gwyneth Paltrow, Odessa Azion, and Penn Jillette. It's an unusual, slightly abrasive ensemble, and that feels intentional, matching a film that's more interested in personality than comfort. At the centre of Marty Supreme is, of course, Timothée Chalamet, and what makes the performance so compelling is that the film never tells us how we're supposed to feel about him. Marty Mauser is narcissistic, brazen, and often deeply frustrating, but he's also vulnerable enough that you occasionally find yourself pulled towards him despite better judgment. That push and pull is deliberate. There are moments where Marty's confidence feels aspirational, his refusal to accept limits, his belief that he deserves more than the world is offering him. And then, almost immediately, that confidence tips into entitlement. You're left unsure whether you should admire his determination, pity his delusions, or hope he finally faces consequences for the damage he causes. Crucially, Marty doesn't exist in isolation. Characters like this never do. Chalamet plays him as someone who draws others in through charm, persuasion, and an absolute belief in his own justification. And the film is deeply interested in the people who get caught in that orbit. That's where Gwyneth Paltrow and Odessa Azion come in. Paltrow plays a wealthy former actress who appears to have everything: money, status, security, yet is quietly as lost and exposed as Marty himself. Azion's Rachel sits at the opposite end of the social spectrum, grounded in responsibility and consequence, but just as susceptible to Marty's version of the world. What's striking is that class offers neither woman protection. Both are drawn in by Marty's certainty, his ability to reframe selfishness as destiny, recklessness as vision. The performances underline the real danger of a character like this, not just the harm he does to himself, but the way others are pulled into his gravity, absorbing the fallout while he keeps moving forward. If the performances are about control, then the themes are about what the control is hiding. Marty Supreme is deeply interested in self-mythology, the idea that if you repeat a version of yourself often enough, it starts to feel true, not just to others, but to you as well. Marty doesn't just want success, he wants narrative authority. He reframes every setback as temporary, every ethical compromise as necessary, and every person he hurts as collateral in a larger story. But beneath that bravado are moments where the mask slips, flashes of doubt and frustration that suggest a man fighting something far less glamorous than external opposition. Those moments of vulnerability are easy to miss because Marty works so hard to outrun them. He keeps moving, hustling, performing, not just to win, but to avoid stillness. The film quietly suggests that his biggest struggle isn't against rivals or circumstances, but against himself. Rather than offering punishment or redemption, the film leaves us with something more unsettling, the sense that Marty may win plenty of battles while quietly losing the one that matters most. Directed by Josh Safdie, the film's crafted deliberately restrained. Scenes are allowed to run long, repetition becomes insight, and the camera rarely tells us how to feel. The pacing will test some viewers, but it mirrors Marty's compulsive forward movement. Even when the film brushes up against wealth and glamour, it never feels aspirational. Luxury is hollow, transactional, and slightly suffocating, reinforcing the idea that success, at least as Marty understands it, offers no stability, only another stage. Marty Supreme isn't an easy film to recommend in simple terms. It offers no catharsis, no clean moral arc, and no reassurance that its central figure will learn or change. Instead, it asks you to spend time with a character who is compelling, exhausting, and deeply unsettling. What makes it work is its confidence in that discomfort. Trust the audience to sit with contradiction, to admire ambition while recoiling from its consequences, to feel sympathy without absolution. By the end, you may or may not like Marty Mauser. You understand him, and that understanding lingers. Marty Supreme, magnetic, repellent, and fragile. Thank you for listening to Movie Shorts. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider recommending it to others, leaving a comment on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find me on Instagram at Movie Shorts Andy Mac, TikTok, and Reddit. Until next time, thank you for listening, and goodbye.